Hey everyone, this is Brad Hughes, School Principal and Chief Encouragement Officer from Ontario, Canada. And I've got some good news for you. You found the Good News, Brad News podcast, amplifying stories of heart-led educators moving from positive intention to action. Great people like you, improving kids' lives through service, connection, and finding the fun. So glad you're here. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited that you made a reservation for the Good News, Brad News podcast. I am your host, Brad Hughes, and as you settle in and get comfortable, please have a look at today's special because practical strategies are on the menu today as we get ready to serve up episode 30 of the Good News, Brad News podcast with my guest, Erin Mengeu, parent, partner, educator, and newly published author, now residing in Michigan, USA. Erin has been teaching and inspiring kids for 20 years now. She's been an elementary teacher at many classroom settings, a professional learning leader, and now teaches education courses at the graduate level. She's also the mom of 3 wild and crazy kids that keep her on her toes. Erin has spent many years researching developmental growth and brain development, and she helps teachers learn effective developmental strategies through her blog, Be Their Difference. Not to mention her brand new book, Slow Down, Children Are Learning. I spoke with Erin about her determination to shift the focus from children's achievement scores to their foundational developmental needs, and about following our instincts to teach what really matters, even when it's tough. I know you'll enjoy getting to know Erin today, and after hearing her story, you'll be eager to connect with her too. So, your table is waiting. Here's my interview with Erin Mengeu today on the Good News, Brad News podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back once again to the Good News, Brad News podcast. I'm speaking with an educator, an author, and a wonderful, wonderful human being. It's Erin Mengeu. Erin, welcome to the Good News, Brad News podcast.
Thank you so much, Brad.
Erin, delighted to connect with you. And I like to kick off each episode by asking guests to talk about their different roles. What makes Erin Mengeu the special person that she is? Tell me about your community, your family, and your professional roles, if you could.
Okay, great. Well, I'm a mom of 3 wild, crazy kids that keep me on my toes. And I have been a teacher for 18 plus years. The past 2 years, however, we took a move from Ohio to Michigan, and that led me on this venture to kind of a new role in my life, just navigating where I'm going to go with education. And I've been researching, my wheels are turning, my brain doesn't stop. And so I started writing. And so now I can call myself author, I guess. So yeah, mom, teacher, author. I spent most of my years in elementary classrooms. I feel like that's where I'm most comfortable. And now being able to see different districts, different states, different educators, and all these wheels that are turning, collaborated into one big piece. And bam, I became an author, which has been really exciting.
Erin, your call to action for your contacts in your professional learning community is Be Their Difference. What does Be Their Difference mean to you, and why might it be more important now than ever to be their difference?
I'll tell you, it's important to me that I can be a difference in everybody's life that I touch, like not just in education, but for my husband, for my mom and my dad and strangers, everybody growing up. Without getting too philosophical on you, growing up, I can just see how my life has been orchestrated beautifully and how people have been placed in my life for a reason at the perfect time. And I just want to be that for somebody, whether it's my students or my kids or my husband or strangers. And so as I've navigated this new venture the past 2 years, I just want to make a difference, and in education, there were moments in my career where I felt like being their difference was being stifled. And I have felt like I could do more, but because of different circumstances, that was an obstacle. And now I feel like through writing, I can be their difference, and so can so many other people, whether you're just a regular human in any old career, or whether you are an educator, where my heart is. So just being a little bit better every day, and like doing what's best, even when it's hard.
You're sharing your thinking and your heart, which is exactly what we're here to do. You've made the transition from educator to writer, and your book is Slow Down, Children Are Learning. What does it mean to you to go slow now to go fast later?
Okay, now you're getting me on my soapbox. I have this theory that if we could just take a moment and slow down in elementary school and let kids be kids and let their natural curiosities take over and develop mindset and executive function skills, all those developmental skills that you don't just teach, assess, and move on, the things that equip them for learning, kind of front load. I use the analogy in my book, like as an archer slowly pulls back to focus on their target, then they release and they can hit their target, right? So if K-5 even, or K-3, if we really have a hard time with it, right, could just slow down and let these kids be kids and develop them as people and as learners, I would venture to say that we would get overall achievement in the end, or even better. But that's a risk, right? Like taking that risk to slow down at the beginning and hope for that to happen by the time they leave high school and venture into the world, right? We have to be willing to take that risk.
Erin, when you consider schools that may have high stakes or high performance cultures, what kind of attention do we need to pay to social and emotional health and reducing stress as antidotes to those kinds of cultures?
When it comes to the social emotional, I feel like early childhood educators, especially preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, that's where it can all happen. Like taking the time to focus on who they are as people and giving them the skills needed for empathy and identifying their own emotions and all of that social emotion, the whole realm of social emotional learning. If we spent more time on that early on, then we wouldn't have to later. And so when it comes to second or third or fourth grade, when learning is very rigorous and should be very rigorous, they're forgetting those foundational things because we were so fast. We were too fast in kindergarten, first and second grade. So the pace of learning, in my opinion, rigor is good, but we need to front load it and like let those foundational things become habits.
Erin, you've written that we're all capable of more than we think, but revealing our capacity and that of our students depends on reducing stress and increasing confidence for everyone. What practical advice do you have for educators to reduce that stress and increase that confidence so that they and their kids can thrive?
I believe so firmly in instilling a growth mindset, which is one of the chapters of my book. I start my book off with a tragic story of a former student of mine who, as he entered into college, considered committing suicide. I was his third grade teacher, and looking back, I never would have guessed that that was in his future. He was a gifted and talented student. He was smart. He had a great group of friends, a great family. I got to interview him, and I interviewed his mom. His mom had no idea that he struggled in that way with the anxiety. And I think that had we at that time focused on mindset, and failure is not an end result, but an opportunity to move on and learn more. And it's how we learn. Had we taught him that, like, I feel so strongly that that needs to be explicitly taught, that failure is not the end. Failure is how you learn. We know now about our brain, that our brain can be changed, that we can create good habits and let go of those bad habits. And although they all still exist, the good has to outweigh the bad. And so as a student learning, if we teach them that early on, like I'm learning it as an adult, right? Imagine if my kindergarten teacher had taught me that, what kind of adult I would be now. It has the opportunity to change everything long term. So growth mindset's huge.
Erin, as we shift our focus from children's achievement scores to their foundational developmental needs, you've written that it's essential to give ourselves permission to follow our instincts and to teach what really matters. Can you think of times in your career as an educator or beginning writer when following your instincts was tough to do, but so important?
I can. So many times. I taught in a district that was very progressive. We did all this huge building change and all this technology and out with the old, in with the new. And with that, the teachers felt as though we were losing a lot of the important foundational things. We were told to get rid of some books because everything's digital. You can get books digital. And, I was teaching kindergarten at the time, and it's like, kindergarten, no, they need to learn concepts of print. They need to know you turn a page, the way you turn a page, the way you hold a book. Like, we can't just get rid of our libraries, our classroom libraries. Everything cannot be digital. That was a time where admin was asking us to get rid of things that we felt were developmentally appropriate. Imaginative play centers and so many things. And colleagues of mine got in trouble for saying, I'm just going to close my door and do what I know is right. It's tough. It's really, really tough because you don't want to be viewed as the teacher that's like going rogue necessarily, but you have this instinct that is right and you want to follow. So you're really between a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out like what your role is and where you fall in it all, and keeping, the opinion of everybody around you. Like, I was one of the almost veteran teachers, I would say. And if I do this, then will other people, and I don't want them to get into trouble. And it was a very tough spot, as a kindergarten teacher. There was a time where we got rid of handwriting because everything's digital and we should teach typing. And it was like, oh my gosh, but if we look at the research, we talked with our district occupational therapist, and she shared like there is research that nothing lights up the brain like making the strokes top to bottom, left to right, and the importance of the brain development in teaching handwriting. So there was like, I would say, a 5-year span of kids who went through and did not get handwriting instruction and miss out when it comes to cognitive learning, that development that happens in the brain. There's so many moments that I could say that you have to decide between like the state, like the bigger level of education is telling you versus like what's in your heart. And depending on who your admin is, whether it's somebody that is really driven as far as the state is concerned and outcomes are concerned, the support you have with your admin is huge. So that makes it even more difficult if you're working with people who don't give you that autonomy in your classroom. So there's always that piece as well. There's a lot of factors that play a role in like doing what's best for your kids. And I tend to live my life in the doghouse because I am the person that will push the envelope. There are so many situations where I challenge educators to do what's in their gut, but they want to have a job too. So
we all recognize that tension between doing what is best for kids and what is expected by the state or the district. And navigating that tension depends on practical strategies that your book offers. Your book is full of practical strategies that affirm effective practice, that prompt reflection on the part of educators, and you provide the resources to support. So it sounds like a great recipe. It sounds like a great antidote to that stress.
Yes, yes. And there's so, like you said, there are so many strategies in the book where, it's no secret that teachers are overwhelmed today, right? There's so
Yeah.
much going on. They have so much on their plate. And the strategies in the book are things that can just be put into all the regular content areas. It's not adding more. It's just doing what you already do in a little bit of a different way. And so it's not to overwhelm anybody, but to maybe even make their life easier and get better outcomes in the end.
Your book documents how you've leveraged cross-disciplinary expertise in your buildings and districts to reveal the developmental importance of everyday classroom skills and tasks that might be taken for granted. How did you discover the power of leveraging expertise from colleagues in your building and district?
I have been just so lucky to work with amazing people. And many, many years in the classroom, I taught inclusion. At the time when we first started teaching inclusion, we were like, is this what's best? Is this not? And my speech and language pathologist at our building collected a lot of data on that. And her data showed that not only the kids who were on IEPs that she was there to support improved, but the regular ed students improved drastically as well. And those students on IEPs need role models. And she did a comparison with her kids that were in other classrooms that just had pull out services versus the kids that were in an inclusion setting. And the kids in inclusive settings data showed that they exceeded the expectations. We both believe that that was due to having good role models, sitting right next to them. So she would come in my class, and the special ed teacher would come in my class every single day for several hours of the day and teach lessons. We would co-teach together. 5 or 6 years in a row, we did that. It was OT, couple years PT, physical therapy, speech and language. Mostly it was in kindergarten. So speech typically in kindergarten, a lot of it's executive functioning, which is a term that for years I was even like, okay, everybody says executive functioning. Like, what really is that? Watching her provide these strategies to students was amazing. And I learned so much as far as what really all kids need, not just kids on an IEP, kids identified with disabilities, but every child. It even made me reflect on my own learning. Had I been taught these lessons about self-advocating and time management, how much better would I have succeeded in learning? It really made my heart draw toward those average kids that tend to be forgotten sometimes. We're very easily enriching the gifted and remediating the lower end academically. But it's those middle kids that we just think, oh, they'll get it. But what if they don't? When it comes to advocating and time management and emotional regulation, I just learned a ton from having those specialists come in. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. Like, I'm that girl that asks the question that I think is a dumb question, but probably other people in the room are thinking. The question nobody has the guts to ask. I'm that girl. And so I'm always the first to raise my hand and be like, okay, dumb that down for me. Explain it. And so when you're willing to ask those questions, you get great answers and great resources. So that's the other call to action I give to educators is use the resources in your building. Ask the occupational therapist what you should do when a kid's holding a pencil the wrong way. Pull them aside. Like, they're there. I know not specifically for you, but they're going to give you the answers, right? Like, they're a team. They all want the same thing. So I've just learned a ton from the specialists, and I really, really wish every regular education teacher had a fraction of the knowledge that those specialists have so they could provide that same stuff to the general public in their class.
Your book distills the lessons that you've learned and the strategies that you've gleaned from those paraprofessionals. I would love to know more about your book release, and I'd love to know how your transition from educator to author may have clarified and reinforced your purpose and beliefs about education and caring for kids.
I don't know yet. Like, growing up, all I ever wanted to be was a mom. And I became a teacher first. Teacher is who defines me. And so I feel like I'm better at teacher than I am at mom. And so I have cherished these couple of years being not being in the classroom and being home with my kids. And I can feel the energy I have at home now that I didn't have in the past because my patience was spent by the end of the day. But I don't know what I want to do. And I'm okay saying that. I would love to have an impact on educators. I feel like that maybe would be the way to reach a larger group of kids. I would also love to have an impact on parents. I'm now able to wear that parent hat and not that teacher hat. And it's difficult to be the parent that's a teacher because people think that teacher parents are perfect. And boy, are we not. I mean, it is a daily battle to do what's right with your own kids. And when virtual school was, during COVID was an eye opener because I can teach 25 other people's kids. But when it comes to my own, they don't think I know what I'm talking about. I don't know what becoming an author is going to mean for me, but I hope it means a bunch for other people. I'm kind of just trusting that there's a plan, that it will be used, whether administrators are getting their hands on it or personal teachers, even if it's just a small group of friends that end up buying the book and making a difference. I just hope that it makes a difference for people.
As we live, learn, and teach through a global pandemic, I think you'll agree that the stakes have never been higher to ensure that educators stay connected to their passion for teaching. I'm wondering what role your book might play in helping educators rediscover their passion for teaching and reinvigorate their determination to stay in education.
You know what? My heart goes out to exactly what you're asking because so many teachers are leaving right now. And the teachers that I see leaving are the best of the best. One of my own neighbors, who is a kindergarten teacher, her health has not been great and she feels the stress of teaching is part of that. And she is done, like mid-year, done. It just kills me to think that they're leaving because of stress. And I'll tell you, I know it's not easy. I know how exhausting it is. And all I know is for me, when I was in the classroom and the stress of like what everybody's wanting from you versus what you know is right, reminding yourself of why you first became a teacher is huge. Reminding yourself from the end of the year to the beginning of the year, like that growth that you watched happen. And the best growth is not even the academic growth, but when they start believing in themselves and they tell you, when you see their mindsets changing and you see that glow in their faces, like that's why we did it, right? That's why we became teachers. You have to remind yourself why you did it. I'm hoping that my book will share like those practical strategies, right? Just practical, like creating good humans, like giving them the tools to believe in themselves and to achieve their goals and use their creativity and be who they were meant to be, not who we want them to be, but who they were meant to be. That's why we came into this profession. And so hopefully through reading my book, teachers will be reminded, because a lot of what's in my book, teachers already do. But I'm hoping that the book will remind them of why they're doing it and the research that backs that up. A lot of what we're starting to do now, like the play-based learning and all of that, they did 20 years ago. But I don't know that the research was there 20 years ago to back it up. We know so much more about the brain now than we've ever known before. And so hopefully teachers today will look at that and be reminded that there is a scientific purpose, there's a spiritual purpose, there is a purpose for what you're doing. I hope the book will do that as well.
Erin, your new book, Slow Down, Children Are Learning, drops March the 1st. The pillars of that book, curiosity, positivity, growth mindsets, all three have been in ample evidence as we've talked today about your journey from educator to author. and your determination to help support and grow great humans. Erin Mengeu, what a delight to connect with you. Thank you for taking time, and thank you for being a guest on the Good News, Brad News podcast.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's been awesome.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Good News, Brad News podcast. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. And if you like what you heard, please recommend Good News, Brad News to a friend. And please hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at Brad, BRAD, _Hughes, HUGHES. I look forward to hearing from you and to reconnecting with you on our next episode. Until then, get out there and do amazing things.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at teachbetter.com/podcasts, and we'll see you at the next episode.